Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bitcoin Talk. Today we have with us Saiyasodharan, and he is an UI/UX developer who recently joined Bull Bitcoin as a front-end engineer. And we'll have a nice conversation with him, ask him about his journey, ask him how he got into all of this, and we'll have a lot of fun. So, welcome, Sai, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Raj. Hi, everyone.
Hey, nice. So, Sai, just tell us a bit about yourself. Like, when did you got into Bitcoin? When did you first learn about, heard about it, learned about it, and how did you manage to get a career out of this?
Okay, so it's a hell lot of long journey. So initially, it was in 2016 when I first heard about Bitcoin. That time I had no idea what Bitcoin actually is. It was like some internet money, and then anyone can mine some internet money with if you have some softwares properly installed. That's when I tried it, and then I installed the Bitcoin core mining rig, everything, and then even back that time I heard about mining pools. Like you cannot mine it on your own; you need to join some pool, and there were some pool called GB Miner or something in India. I joined them and then I ran everything and the script told me like you don't have GPU, you cannot mine Bitcoin. And then okay, fuck. And then I left it and then 1 year gap. And then again everyone started talking about Bitcoin and then I went to YouTube and then Googled what is Bitcoin. So many people had so many videos about it, so many jargons which I couldn't relate much. I couldn't understand anything. It's a completely new world. And then one video which I clearly remember, which got me hooked into Bitcoin, which is something I don't even remember the title exactly, but goes something like blockchain or bullshit by Andreas M. Antonopoulos.
Right. I
And then
remember that one.
the
That
way
was
he
good.
yeah, the way he spoke and then the clarity, the confidence, and then all the videos that I saw before, it was all about technology, okay, but then this guy is talking something about banks, governments, and then I could sense his hate for governments and banks, and then that got me interested. Okay, so this is something more, I guess, and then I started watching more of his videos, and then right,
Right.
what happens when you see
Yeah,
like 10
yeah.
videos of
Then
Andreas in
then
a
you
line.
go down the rabbit hole and
Yeah,
start exploring it more, and eventually it hits the point where you just can't stop thinking about it, and you are like almost
exactly,
like thinking about it every day. So at that point,
exactly.
you start thinking like, if I'm thinking about it every day, why don't I just start working here? Right. So,
Exactly.
so how does that journey look like? What was life before Bitcoin? And how when exactly you thought like, okay, this is time, like I have to get into this field and work full time and try to contribute as much as possible. So how did that journey happen?
Okay, so when I first heard about Bitcoin, like I was doing my own startup. The startup idea was, in a short summary, like to provide software support to the NGOs, non-for-profits, volunteers, those who wanted to contribute to social change in some way, those who are questioning social quota in some way. Okay, so that's my kind of activity. And then obviously, like Bitcoin is doing that very properly. But since I'm running my own startup, I want that to succeed. Like I thought, okay, Bitcoin I will do in my side, like whatever learning, whatever things. But one point of time, late 2021, like after putting 5 years into the startup journey, I realized fundamentally I'm not a businessman, I'm not a sales guy. So I have
Yeah.
the passion, I am hardworking, I have the software skills also, but sales business is not my cup of tea. And then okay, like okay, let's go get a job. It's not, the startup thing is not doing well for me. And then I thought, okay, what are the opportunities in Bitcoin? It's like late 2021, right? Like I talked with you and then you gave me some 1.5 year roadmap. And then and that was in the mid of bear market. And then because of my circumstances, I immediately wanted to get into a job and then start earning good, right? So I took up some job, and then on the sidewise, like I'm learning all these things like mastering Bitcoin. I have read even in 2018, but I just skimmed through it. So
Right.
I read it properly. And then I thought like, okay, to get into some Bitcoin company, I shouldn't bring some resume and then apply for it. Like, because there will be hundreds of resumes in the table. So I thought,
Right.
okay, let's make something which will catch their eyes. Okay. And then
Right.
me and my friend Saran and Mani, we did a side project. That's a
Yes,
Lightning
the
Explorer.
Lightning House,
LN Lighthouse.
Lighthouse.
Yeah,
Right,
LN
and
Lighthouse.
that's an amazing tool. So we will put the link of that tool in the description. So this is a
Yeah,
fun little Lightning Explorer that anybody can go and check out. And Lightning Explorers are hard thing to build because we don't actually know like what to explore in Lightning Network. But apparently, these geniuses figured out there is a way to display the Lightning Network graph data, and that was so much fun. And yep, that was an amazing project.
yeah, yeah. So there are two things. We wanted to do something in Bitcoin as a hobby project to learn the technology. That was one thing. And since I am looking for job and all, okay, I need a portfolio project also. So I clubbed it both the together and did
Right,
this. And actually, this project helped me to land interviews with so many companies.
right.
And then yeah, now I am into Bitcoin. Yeah,
Right, makes sense. In a sense, like the Bitcoin industry kind of works in the same way. You first do the proof of work, and then you get
mm,
validated. Right.
mm,
So
mm.
that's in general the nature. So that's something that I'd like ask our viewers to keep in mind. Like the best way to get into this space, whether you are doing UI UX or backend or wherever, it's better after you're getting your basics done, like covering mastering Bitcoin, programming Bitcoin, go straight build a proof of work, like building a portfolio, building up your job profile, building up your GitHub profile. This is what something that will get you in the space. So thanks, Sai, and for like the run through of your journey. Sounds like an exciting one. And as always, so how you're enjoying your life on like a Bitcoin job now?
Yeah, it's fairly new now. Like it's not even 2 months now. So I am doing my day-to-day work, and then in my free time I'm trying to learn all the things. Though I'm working only on front end now, eventually like you cannot be here only, right? And
Right.
my CEO Francis was like, "You will be put in everywhere. You need to sit for mobile development. You need to sit for backend development." That's what I actually wanted as well. So like
Right.
I'm spending my free time on learning all the stuff.
Right, right. Yep, sounds exciting and sounds fun. So, you were predominantly started as a UI UX developer, right? Working on the front end, designing how to display data, how to interpret data. So, in a general sense, if we try to think about the UI UX landscape of Bitcoin, what do you think are the major challenges? How do you see UI UX development different from in Bitcoin than in traditional UI UX? What are the new kind of problems we are facing here? What are the new kind of innovation that needs to be done?
See, fundamentally, Bitcoin itself is in a very early stage, right? So if you open a wallet, whichever software you want to interact with Bitcoin, for a normal layman person, it's all like super cryptic. You see
Right.
some addresses, you see some Bitcoin transaction IDs and all that. So it's even now it's hard for a normal person to use because
It's
look at the
different. It's like
alternatives.
something like they haven't seen before.
Yeah, if you look at the alternatives are GPay, what PayPal app, whatever, and all the fintech applications out there, right? It's all
Hmm.
simple.
Hmm.
The flow is easy for them to do. You sign up with your Gmail ID, phone number, OTP comes, your account is set up. But then Bitcoin is completely different. And then like I saw a video in last Bitcoin meetup in Miami or something. That there, like one company, Ibico or something, they told they made a proper Bitcoin development and gave it to the people. They are building like Bitcoin for bank, something like that, and they are confused. Like, where should I enter my email account? And they are telling like, no, you write down your 12 words and then your account is ready. And they cannot accept that. They are like, okay, is it for
Right.
real? This can happen. And then to make them feel comfortable, they actually set up a email normal regular flow where you
Right.
collect the
Right.
email address, and
Right.
then they
So
are
this
like, okay,
reminds
now
me
now I
This reminds me of
yeah,
another book that I have read. Like they did exactly the same thing for telephones in the early days because people were so used to have the static
hmm,
noise in their receiver when they upgraded
oh,
their system. When the static noise gone, people thought, is it even working? Like, is the connection is still alive? So they added extra static noise inside it artificially to make people feel comfortable. Right. So
yeah,
it seems
yeah.
like something like that.
Exactly, exactly. So the Bitcoin culture ethos says you should not collect any data, self sovereignty, and all that stuff. But on the other side, people don't get what all this is about. So they want to enter their email number, email ID. So if they forget the password, they can call the customer care, get some help, and then get their account recovered. That is their traditional
Mm-hmm.
flow. So
Mm-hmm.
this is a conflicting part, right? So we go like, no, you learn self sovereign, you don't do all this, you take only the 12 words, this is what our mantra looks like, but then people don't
Mm-hmm.
understand, so you need to find a middle way. I think
Right.
for now, whatever works in the market, we should go with that.
Right.
Whatever like
Right.
clicks with the people, we should go with that. Yeah.
Okay. So what are the kind of like cutting edge thing as an UI UX developer you are seeing coming out from the Bitcoin industry?
So I'm not sure how to answer that because I haven't explored much on this because recently I am spending more of my time with the backend Bitcoin core and stuffs. Uh, Two things I can tell you. One is this initiative Bitcoin.design. They
Mm-hmm.
have some wonderful design initiatives on the Bitcoin design, like how a wallet should look like. All simple
Right.
things, but they
Right.
have given much deeper thought on the user as well, and the design aspect as well. They have some very good reference designs also. So if you want to
Right.
do a wallet and you need to do a wireframe, you should start there. You should not think
Right.
anything on your own. You start there,
And
reference. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, say.
And Bitcoin.design is probably the biggest design community out there right now on Bitcoin. So if you are a designer and if you want to like have conversation with other designers thinking about what kind of project you should choose as your portfolio project, that's the place you want to be. Bitcoin.design. It has a
Yeah.
Slack group and it is very active and they are doing some amazing work out there. So
Okay.
yeah, and what would you suggest for somebody who is like either did a design degree from college or like spent 1 or 2 years learning design, getting its tools done, and wants to get into Bitcoin design and stuff? So how would you suggest like that person should go ahead and how he should like think about pursuing for the gearing up for Bitcoin design portfolio project? What does that path would look like?
So I would recommend the same path that I followed. There are so many hard UI problems here. Okay, as you said, with Lightning Network, it's a completely complex beast out there, which you like for a user, like it's complex. Like I'm not even talking about the end user who is going to transact. I'm even talking about node operators. Okay, even for them,
Right.
it's all complex. Balance of Satoshis, for example, it's a very good tool, but it's command line only. We have Thunder
Right.
Up, which don't have C Lightning support. So
Right.
there are still so many unsolved problems here. So what I would recommend, first start using the tools so you understand the current state of affairs right now. So how hard it is. And since if you're from a design background, you can think of so many cool solutions, so many cool designs which can make things simple for regular users, and then like do it out, submit it to Bitcoin.design, put it in a GitHub repo, or do a open source Figma file, share it with companies, get feedback. And Bitcoin Twitter is
Yeah.
like super active.
Yeah.
Whatever you
Yeah.
put, you will get loads of feedbacks, comments, even
Yes.
criticism, everything. So get
Right.
involved with the
And
community. Yeah.
yes, getting involved with the community is probably some of the hardest thing to explain to a newcomer how exactly to do that. And that's
Yes.
probably the most important thing as a newcomer you need to know in the space, getting involved in the community, because
Yeah.
eventually it's all open source community based development. So
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's happening all over the internet. There is like even no one single place where I can point to and say like, hey, go to x.com and that's what Bitcoin community looks like. So
Yeah.
it doesn't work like that, right? So there are like Discord groups, there are like Twitters, then in Twitter also, what do you see as a community kind of depends on whom do you follow, right? So
Mm.
it depends on how you're crafting your echo chamber. And as a newcomer, it's a very difficult thing to figure out like whom do I follow, how do I know to follow which guys to get which kind of updates. And it only comes
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
experience, with time in the space. But in general, like there are few places that you can land, like Bitcoin.design. Then we have our Bitcoin India Telegram group. And then what else? We have our Bitcoin India developers group. So these are the
mm,
places where you can drop, and from there you can find other people, talk with them,
mm,
look what they're
mm.
working on, find other groups. So every project almost out there has their own Discord and GitHub repo. So if you just
Correct.
keep hopping from GitHub repos and Discord, you will eventually end up with a lot of connections and network. And that's pretty important for somebody who is like willing to get seriously involved into this space full time. So yeah, that's a pretty helpful and elaborate answer. And so in general, like when somebody is like coming for like Bitcoin development and space, and like this is for question for somebody who doesn't know design, but things like I might want to get into design, seems like my kind of thing. What kind of tools are designers use mostly that they need to like get their hands really good grip on?
So okay, so I can answer this in two ways. One is like a designer has a different set of tools. A UA developer has a different set of tools, right? So I am basically more kind of a UA developer rather than a designer, but still I can say some things from the foot of a designer. So the basic is like you need to get some design tools expertise, like for example Figma. Get expertise in that, super expertise in that. And then like always my way of learning is like learning by doing. So don't just
Right.
go through some 20 hours of course, Udemy course, and then think you are done. You
Hmm.
actually do something, do some designs, and put it in the community, see what they say. So
Right.
that is on the design part. And the developer, you as a UI developer, I would say like the whole world is in React now. Of course there are other alternatives, but I would say like stick with React only, because like most of the Bitcoin projects at least are in React, except for few different cases. And I have some specific course recommendation. So you can just Google Kent C Dodge. So he has a very wonderful React course. Like he will start with the basics of allowable, and then he will take you into how experts, React experts things. And that course comes with a cost. It's not a free course, but it's totally worth it. So even if you are an experienced React developer, I would recommend take the course and then do it. So it will be super helpful for a beginner also. It's super helpful.
Right.
uh, so
Right.
after completing the course, then think of your hobby project, work on stuffs. Yeah.
Right, makes sense. So, yep, that was helpful, and we'll also post the link of this course that I talked about in our description. Do check that out. And yep, and if you have any other design and UI UX related questions, do post us in our comment section. We will be keeping an eye on that, and we will be answering them whenever we can. So let's move on to the next topic, which is probably the most fun part, where we basically just hash about Bitcoin. So I just want to start with my favorite question. What is Bitcoin?
Yeah. So with non-Bitcoin people, I will answer it some way, since mostly our audience might be Bitcoin people. We are living in the age of monarchy. Okay, so we only know how the rules of a kingdom looks like. We have never seen democracy. Okay, but then
Right.
we are having this idea: what if we have some system called democracy where we choose our leaders among ourselves? We have that discussion, and then you are coming and asking me what is democracy. It's hard to explain, man. Give me
that's
100 years.
like that's like
Yeah,
the most elaborate way of saying like it's a hard question to answer.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but
So
yeah, like give it a
see,
shot, like give it
I
give
will
it
give
the
an
craziest
attempt.
Bitcoin definition. I know, like I asked this question because I know there is no one right answer, and it's an hard question to answer, right? And we in Bitcoin field like keep coming up with this question, and everybody has their own way of answering it. So what is the craziest way of like thinking about Bitcoin that you have come across or you have thought about?
The plain answer is like, since we humans started settling down, we were like hunters and travelers back then, and then we started settling down agrarian societies, and then kingdoms, rulers are happened, right? So we are always try to find the best form of arranging things so we can live with each other. We are like basically beasts inside, apes, primates, right? But we wanted to live in a better way. Like that's what we call civilization, right? So, and civilization goes through different processes. Started with agrarian, and then monarchs, and then now we have democracy. So Bitcoin is a technology on one side, but on the other side, it's a set of processes, culture, values, which will take us to the next step from democracy to whatever is going to come next. Bitcoin is doing that. That's what I think.
Right, right. Yeah, in some way, it's like trying to redefine the structural arrangements between we have among ourselves as humans, and what we are trying to like optimize for always it trades. We wanna
Mm,
do trade with least amount of friction as possible, and Bitcoin is just a new way. We always have been doing that with money and with other
mm,
kind of tools and tokens. Bitcoin is just a new kind of way to do that natively on internet. So now
mm,
it becomes this like part of this global connection of humans to humans
mm.
network, where
Yeah,
Bitcoin fits in and extends that trade framework in that
yeah,
digital world. So another interesting question I want to ask is like but it's been said like Bitcoin changes you more than you can change Bitcoin. Right. So, what are the ways you have felt in your life how Bitcoin changed you?
okay. So, in my 20s, I started as a communist. Okay. So, my mindset
Okay.
is like, I don't know, because of the books I read and everything stuffs, like, I wanted to spend my time fixing the social problems. Forget your family, forget yourself. Like, nature will take care of when you are taking care of the society. So, that's how things started. But then, like, as I told, I did a startup stint and all, right? So, that doesn't align well with communism, right? So somehow along the lines, my logical mind got the clear understanding. So in nature there is nothing called selflessness and all. The lion takes care of itself, deer takes care of itself, ant takes care of itself, but then as a whole thing somehow works. So in capitalism they use something called invisible hand. You take care of your company, your own profits, the entire ecosystem will be taken care by invisible hands. You don't, no one need to do anything specifically for that. That 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 hit my logical mind, but still emotionally I am like, no, I wanted to go. There are so many things. If we wait for nature to take care of itself by, then we might lose everything because things are getting too scary. So I was
Right.
like that, but then Bitcoin is the one that made that understanding into my heart. No, no, you stick with nature's rule only. You take care of yourself. Everything will be taken care. Maybe that's why Satoshi came. That's why Bitcoin happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the change. Like from
Yeah.
communism to capitalism in the heart, Bitcoin only made that change.
Right. And in to like pillify it, the pill was like taking care of yourself. Bitcoin somehow like teaches us to take care of yourself first,
Yeah,
then worry about the world, then try to
yeah,
fix the world, fix us
yeah.
first, and then we try to fix the world. So, and Bitcoin kind of like one thing that I think like happens to everybody. It kind of like lowers your time preference when you starts like saving in a hard money asset. You always
Mm,
kind of like looking ahead for like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the line. You are not like
mm,
running for the quick profits anymore. So
mm.
it's in a sense capitalism, but in a very different flavor of capitalism that we see in our capitalism, like where everybody is running for the money, right, where everybody
Yeah,
is chasing the quick gain, and the
yeah,
startups have to like go through this hyper growth region, otherwise you are dooms and dead. But
mm,
Bitcoin kind of like comes and tells you like, whoa bro, slow down, like nature is going to take its course. Do your
mm,
exercises, do your health, do your lifestyle, figure your own things out. Bitcoin gonna figure itself out anyway, whether you do something for it or not. So
yeah,
then suddenly the question starts becoming about us, and that's where some kind of like a spiritual shift happens, and a lot of people ends up like leaving their previous career from business, marketing, development, software, like other kind
mm,
of things, and
yeah,
try to align themselves in this way where they are like basically feeding themselves, and they are like basically satisfying their own innate creativity of like existing in this world. So that's something very beautiful that Bitcoin does. And
mm,
so in a way, like we kind of like talked for a long about Bitcoin, just to not to explain Bitcoin, but kind of like
Mm.
create this mystical aura around this thing. If somebody doesn't know what we're talking about, they will think like we are just two crazies, like
Yeah.
doing some hippie thing. But anyway,
Yeah.
like eventually, like even if it sounds too crazy, even if it sounds too like futuristic, or like too hyperbole to even think or perceive about, it is a real thing, and it is an important thing, right?
Yes.
So why do you think like Bitcoin is important? Why the youth of any nation, not just India, should take a note on this, should have an eye on this? And why would young people, young, curious, capable, resourceful people should get into this?
Good question. So I read an article in Economic Times 1 year back. This is specific to India, but the pattern applies everywhere. It was like, if a young couple is now earning some 50,000 rupees, and their monthly expenses is around that. Okay, and they have some kind of lifestyle, right, with that amount of money for every month. So the Economic Times article said, with the current amount of inflation uh, planned out in next 20 years, after 20 years, to maintain the same standard of living, they need to earn 1,65,000. Okay,
Okay,
of course,
that's more than
salary
three
hikes,
times.
everything will happen. Yeah, everything will happen.
Hmm.
Their salary will be more after 20 years. But still, what happens is, you will get stuck in this rat race forever. Okay, just to keep up with the inflation, you need to like go for hikes, do extra works, push yourself hard. Okay, just to keep up with inflation. Okay, forget about going up the ladder and all. So you can never plan your retirement in a proper way when you live in a fiat standard, when you live with the current paper money system. So like, if you come into Bitcoin, initially things will be super volatile, things will be scary and all, but then I believe you can retire in next 10 years if you do your things properly.
Yeah, even I would like slightly disagree. If you come into Bitcoin in next 10 years, you are going to figure out that you don't want to retire ever. And you
No,
want to keep
correct.
doing, you will be free, that you will be technically retired, but you will keep doing whatever you are doing, and you
Of
will
course.
find a new definition of retirement.
Of course. Of course.
And yeah, and also like it also hits to the point, is like, in a way our global geopolitical situations is going, we are seeing like there is a tug of war happening between superpowers, right? Russia waging war on Ukraine, US sanctioning Russia, Europe having oil and heating crisis, and then a bunch of like Southeastern Asian countries, African countries, and South American countries, the global South, is going towards a lot of turmoils that are happening. Things are breaking down in Lebanon, things are breaking down in Venezuela. And
Mm.
so in this kind of like global process of chaos, uh, where do you think Bitcoin shines? Where do you think Bitcoin comes as a hope? Or where would you think like we would have been if Bitcoin didn't exist?
I totally couldn't imagine one. I could think one for myself.
Let's talk something about the economics, and how can people benefit into this kind of turmoil situation by just starting to hold about a hard asset. And where does that help? Where does that help people allow to build? Where does that help people allow to plan and all these things? So I'm gonna ask the probably the question again, and just to reframe the question. So in this case of like global turmoil, where we are seeing like the power clashes between super weights and super heavy nations, and now we are seeing economic inputs where the USD is like probably going to lose their global reserve currency status in next 10 to 15 years, probably even sooner. Depends on how situation goes. How do you think for common people, or for even nation states, the value proposition, the investment thesis of Bitcoin pans out in this progression?
Yeah, like, I don't know, like, normal people follow these details and then they understand the implications of what they see in the news. Okay, we all follow the news, but what's their implications? Like, as you told, like 15, 20 years from now, like, we don't know like where USD will stand. Okay, we are all like USD is like forever. No, it's not like that. You go back and look at the history.
Mm.
Every currency has a life cycle of 80, 100, 120 years. So I
Right.
think
Yep.
USD is in its second half of its life. So
Yeah.
like we need something politically neutral to like to cling our life on, to have our savings on. And I don't think there is anything apart from Bitcoin. Like
Right.
basically there are like, if you look at stories from Venezuela and all, like your whole entire savings either got inflated away or getting seized. That's like I couldn't imagine like what will be the status of emotional mind state of those people. Okay, okay, we are like we are in
Right.
India, okay, what else? But then like what's happening as a sudden death there is happening as a like very slowly here. Okay, so it's so like you need to look for like stability, and uh, that should come with monetary stability, and only Bitcoin gives you that. So like before investing in it, understand it. So before understanding
Right.
Bitcoin, to understand the current system, watch Big
Right.
Short movie, Matrix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Read some
Yeah.
Austrian economics books, listen to Andreas Antonopoulos, and like
Absolutely.
yeah, Andreas also had this quote in one of his video where he said like the best thing you can invest in Bitcoin is your time, and
Mm.
the money part you will figure out later on anyway. The first thing you should invest on Bitcoin is your time. So
Yeah.
yep, that was a good answer, and we had a long fun discussion over this. So we are at the end of our recording, and so what do you want to like say as a last word to our Indian ecosystem, and or like how do you see like how was your experience, how the Indian ecosystem grew up in last 2 3 years? Because in 2018 few people kind of like started the Bitcoin India Telegram group, and then people started joining in over time. Last year we had our first technical Bitcoin conference in India. So how
Yeah.
did you
Yeah.
see the progression happen, and where do you see it going from now?
So like I am very happy with whatever is happening, like Bitcoin for India, people who are working amazing things on the back end. But then like I am kind of like super unsatisfied. I'm not blaming the current people now, but we are still a small group. Like you, I go online and then I see all crypto stuffs, and they don't know what they are even talking about. And then comparatively, we are still a small group of people. I just want like more people to join in. Like I want Bitcoin for India to grow 100x in 1 year. Then maybe
Right.
I will be happy. Like, you can.
Right.
It's always like very unfair like what's happening. So yeah, that's what basically my thought process
Yeah.
is. We need to do a lot.
Yeah. But in general it also like is a slow process. In general, like you cannot like convince people into Bitcoin. People have to
Yeah.
convince themselves,
Yeah.
but eventually the number is going up. So like I'm also like very hopeful for what brings up for Bitcoin for India in next 1 or 2 years. And like we should have like enough amount of focus on Bitcoin related project, Bitcoin related startups. The startup space on Bitcoin in India is very sad. We also should have like a serious conversation from the community with the
Mm.
policymakers on how the
Yeah.
policymakers should deal with this space and how business should operate here. Otherwise India is going to like drain a lot of brain and a lot of money. And
Yeah.
places like Lugano, places like El Salvador, Singapore, this kind of can give us like some kind of like ideas of like
Yeah.
what does a good regulation look like, and what happens actually for your jurisdiction, for your people and your economy when you actually implement a good regulation which can host the businesses here. So I'm looking forward to those kind of conversation more popping up in the space, and like people are taking us not as like lunatics doing their shadowy supercoder thing, but also as humans. We want a better world, a better life, not just for us but for all our fellow human beings. And we are
Yeah.
just saying like, hey, look, there is a tool to get there. So let's just keep our minds open, let's just broaden up ourselves and see what the nature and reality and physics and computer science and math has to offer us, and how we can use that at our advantage. So
Yeah.
yep. And Thanks for having on this conversation with us, and we learned a lot, and hopefully this was helpful for the viewers and aspirants and existing community people, existing Bitcoiners, Indian and non-Indians. And we will keep having these conversations more and more. And if you have suggestions, topic ideas, and things that you want us to talk about, or things or people you want us to talk with, please let us know in the comment section. Thanks, Sai, for joining us. Any last word for our viewer?
Thank you, Raj, for having me here. Yeah, my last word is like learn Bitcoin. That's it.
Yeah, keep calm and learn Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. See you guys. See you in the next episode. Bye bye.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.